In this video, we're going to take a look at one of the Googan Baits signature boxes. Let's go. What's up, everybody, and welcome to the channel. If you love firearms, fishing, freedom, it's absolutely free to click that subscribe button and bang that little bell icon so you get notified whenever I upload a new video. Today we're going to continue our series on bass fishing, starting with looking at a signature box from a bait company that I hadn't heard of. But JT, everybody who bass fishes knows who's the Googan Squad is. Okay, I've been off the water for the last 5 years. I didn't start fishing again until this spring. Thanks to the Rona, I decided it was time to get my butt back out on the water. So let's talk about what came in this box. Came with a nice little card. I'll show you that. And as we look at it, this bundle includes the Bandito Bug, the Trench Hog, the Kraken Crawl, the Banger, the Clutch, the Grande Recon, Lil Juicy Jig, and the Lunkers Log. Various baits that can cover a pretty good sized lake. So let's look at each one and talk about how it's used. And again, I'm doing this review because I wanted to check these guys out. I'd never seen any of their stuff before. So this was an inexpensive way for me to get a bundle of their stuff and check it out and see how it worked. Now, a while back, I threw up a video on Instagram saying I was going to do a slam, and I'd go through and catch a fish review on each one of these different baits. And that's what I ended up doing. Problem is, the SD card I had a lot of that stuff on, it got wet, and problems happened. I've got a lot of the footage of the catches, but I don't have a lot of the bigger fish I caught. But hey, it is what it is. If they catch fish, they catch fish. If they don't, then maybe they just catch fishermen. I'm here to see if they work or not, to see if I was going to invest more money into the company or go back to the companies that I already knew. Alright, bait number one is this Grande Recon, which is a pretty cool deep diving crankbait. I think it goes down to 12 or 15 feet. On the bottom, 12 to 20 feet. You gotta love that. They mark their bait so you know exactly what they're designed for. Now, one of the things I noticed on their website, they have all kinds of different colors. And I'll start by saying this right now. I notice on every bait, it's not just one color, it's multiple colors fused together. And I really like that because it makes the bait look more natural. There's some funny little detail things that they do that make it intriguing, and I like that, such as these eyes. Those eyes are kind of cool. It makes it distinctive. You know when you pick it up, it's a Googan Squad bait. I mean, that goes without saying. But the paint job on it's pretty nice. And I knew I only had a few lakes in my area that actually were deep enough for me to throw something like this in. I live in southern Indiana, so it's not like we're in, Texas or up in the Great Lakes where we have super deep stuff, but there's a lake pretty close by that's got a dam to it, and I knew there was a creek channel that would let me do that. And that's actually where I caught the first fish on this thing, was working that creek channel, and that was actually pretty good. And I think it's got its time and place when I find deep water ledges. I've got a friend of mine who's got a strip pit that it goes from like 2 feet down to a shelf that's like 12 or 14 feet, and then it drops down into like 60 feet of water. So this will be something I test out there later. If you're brand new to bass fishing, we're going to go over a lot of the equipment again as we progress through the series. But if you've got some experience, this is meant to be fished on 12 to 17 pound fluorocarbon. Depends on what you're comfortable with, but medium to medium heavy action rods. If you're real gear specific, these are meant for slower speed reels. Or if you've got a faster reel, just reel it slower. You just want it slow enough to dive down to the bottom and bounce off of rocks, brush, stumps, things like that. Next up, we had the Googan Squad Banger. It's a shallow running crankbait. As you can see, they're meant to run between 2 and 5 feet. Again, it's a square bill, good for banging off of stumps, rocks, brush. It's a smaller bait. Again, they have a lot of different colors in these baits, and that's really cool. I guess in these boxes, they just grab random whatever and throw in the box, which is fine by me. All the colors that I've looked at are pretty good, and I think these crankbaits, I like them enough. I'll go get more various colors based on where I'm fishing, whether I have clear water or stained water. I didn't throw this one a whole lot either because I'm not a real big crankbait guy, but I caught a few fish off of it, and it did its job. Prior to restarting, I was always mainly a jig and a spinnerbait guy. So for me, this box was a whole different set of what my comfort zone is. So I adjusted and had to, do something new. And for that banger, between 10 and 15 pound fluorocarbon on a medium action rod, again, spinning or bait casting, go with what you're comfortable with, especially if you're just starting out. Now the third crankbait that came with it's called the Clutch. And this is a sinking bait meant to be cast and retrieved. You can let it sink in the grass a little bit and then rip it out. And a lot of times you're ripping it out of that grass. The action of that will just trigger the bass and send them going crazy after that. Now I've always been a guy who liked lipless crankbaits, and I'm actually forcing myself to say lipless crankbaits because we all know the rattle word that I'd prefer to say based on what I grew up throwing all the time. Again, baits don't change that much, but there's little nuances. All these baits have rattles in them. And again, this is a collaboration between the Googan Squad and Catch Co. And they did a good job. Now this is actually a replacement for the orange one that came in my box, because I caught a few fish on it and then I broke a fish off, I think, getting wrapped around a log. Caught a small fish just working this rip-rap rock bank. I mean, I wasn't out there minutes and I caught this fish, but that was kind of a weird place, and I call that Lake the Dead Sea, so I was happy just to catch a fish that day. Banging that clutch off of stumps, and I was actually on the phone with my wife, and I learned a couple of different lessons here. If you're not getting bit at all, and you got a wife or girlfriend, give them a call. Might bring you some good luck. The second thing I learned was the little net that I was using on my boat almost cost me a fish. I had a little bitty net that I got like a Walmart or somewhere just to have a net, and I couldn't get the fish pulled in close enough to get in the net, and when I did, all those little treble hooks got caught in it. So I have since upgraded to a net with a rubber netting in it. It's got big holes in it. Great for catching fish, but it also keeps the crankbaits from getting stuck in it. But again, I like that clutch so much, I went out and bought one. But I bought one in a color that was more familiar to me, because I know in the fall, this thing is going to tear them up. It's late summer here in southern Indiana, going on towards the end of August, but I know this is, and I'm going to have more of these. Now, when I tell you I like jigs, I really like jigs. And almost all of these are Googan Squad jigs. But the little juicy that came in my box, I caught some fish on it, and then it got hung up and I broke it off. Actually, I broke it off on a nice fish. I don't have any more little juicies on the way, but I do have several gridirons, like the Okeechobee Crawl gridiron. I have some of the white swim jig. I've got a couple of swim jigs. Then I have some of their casting jigs. And some of these I'm going to be setting up, and you'll see in a future video, rod that I'm specifically making just for pitching, flipping, and skipping from a kayak. One of the things I really love is being able to see the weight of the jig right on the jig. That is a really cool feature. I plan on throwing the jig a whole lot more the end of this summer. With the little juicy, had no problem catching bass. It's a little finesse jig. I normally throw something bigger, but it caught some fish. All right, now we'll get more into my wheelhouse with some of the soft plastics. And I actually put these in the little Googan Squad boxes. If I had one recommendation for the Googan Squad, the Googans, whoever it is that makes their stuff, a lot of people don't keep them in the plastic bags. They put them in stuff like this just to make it easier to use. Hey guys, if you want to make a little more money, take the little sauce that you send these things with, put it in a bottle. Some of us like to give it a little squirt here and there and keep all these bad boys moist with the sauce. So do yourselves a favor, sell the sauce in its own bottle. So we'll talk about the crack and crawl. Nice little bait, very realistic looking, lots of different colors that are very nice. The little juicy I had was black and blue, so obviously these crawls really do a good job. At the bottom of these crawls are little fins that catch the water and give it that action. So these are great to stick on the back of a jig, or you can throw them on a Texas rig. And if you don't know what a Texas rig is, don't worry, I'm going to be making separate videos on all the various techniques. But if you just watched my first how to fish video on bass fishing, you know I gave you 3 different baits that are basically, you tie them on, you throw them out, you reel them in, and you catch fish. We didn't talk about any soft plastics. So when I talk about a Texas rig, we talk about a hook being on the end of a line with a bullet weight being down there by the bait. And then what we do is we take that hook, we run it into the bait to the point, we bring the point out, okay? And then we push the hook all the way down through that first part. And then to measure, we take our fingers to the bottom of the hook, and we hold it there, and then we pull the hook back, and then we poke it through till it comes out on the other side. Like that. So what happens is when we cast that out, that weight holds it on the ground, the bait stands up off the bottom like this, the fish come by and suck it up. So we just bounce it along the bottom. But that's the crack and crawl. It's literally a bait that looks like a crawfish. Now I caught a bass with this just by throwing it on the back of a juicy jig, and it did the job as a trailer. But again, you can fish it like that or like this as a Texas rig. Now our next bait's called the trench hog. And it's got 4 little arms and 2 long tails. And this is another one that's great that you can throw on a Texas rig. And there's a few other ways you can fish it. But on this one, I actually threw it on the juicy jig to give it a bigger bait, hoping to get a bigger bass. I didn't get a monster bass, but I still caught one on this. But I think in the summertime, especially when I start fishing deeper water, this will be a bait that I will be able to throw on there and be able to entice bigger bites. And again, one of the things I like about the Googan baits is they do a good job of mixing the colors. This has got a blue hue to it, and it's more natural on this side. So when it's moving through the water, the fish actually see 2 different colors. Now the last 2 were the ones that I caught my biggest fish on. And if I had to buy any baits out of this whole box, if I can only buy 2, it would probably be these 2. Just because they work so well. And I mean, easily. So the first one is the Lunkers Log. This is just a stick bait. Stick baits aren't new. Gary Yamamoto has had the Cinco out for 20 some years. But their Lunkers Log is actually pretty good. It's pretty durable. It's thick. It's a pretty big bait. I think they have 5-inch versions and 6-inch versions. I'm not sure. But this one I threw weightless. So as you can see, I just threw a hook in the same way I did with the Texas rig. It's just, there's no weight up here. And what you do is you can take this and put it on a casting rod and cast it way out there and just let it sink a little at a time. Every now and then you just give your rod tip a pop, pulls it back up off the bottom, and then it starts falling again. Another way you can fish this is called the wacky rig. And that's literally because it's wacky. So what we do here, you can either take your wacky rig hook, which is a little bitty hook like this, on the end of the line, and stick it through the middle of the worm, or you can do what I did here and save the bait to make it last longer. Take and put an O-ring around that worm, and then take your wacky rig hook and just hook it under so it does one of these numbers. Again, you could put this on a bait caster or spinning rod. If you're a new fisherman, you're probably using a spinning rod because you're still learning the techniques. But you just cast it out there along grass edges and places like that, stumps, and just let it fall to the bottom. And it'll have a motion like this, but slower as it falls. Then you just pick it up and then let it fall again. It's just a real slow pick up and then let fall. Slow pick up and let fall. You can Texas rig this, you can weightless rig it like I have with the hook here, or a wacky rig. You're going to catch some fish. So here's a few little ones that I caught. Lunkers Log doing work. Just popped it, hit the bank, and dragged it out slowly. And then looking at this video, I cast this out. You'll see the wake of the bass cut straight through the little opening in the water here, right to my bait. It was all I could not to jerk that hook early because I saw that bass coming through the water, making a beeline right for it. All right, last but not least is a creature bait. The Googan Squad bait that I've caught the most fish on this season. By far the most productive. And with that, I literally threw it a lot more just because of how productive this little thing is. This is the bandito bug. This is a little creature bait whose little arms and tail just love fluttering in the water as this thing falls. I put this on a Texas rig with a real light weight, and I throw it around anything and it catches fish. All right, let's go. First cast. My brother caught a close to 3-pounder on his first cast. Are you serious? Dude, first cast. That bandito bug. First damn cast. There we go. Hook me too. First fish on the Bandito bug. But the Bandito bug for me this season has been by far the most productive soft plastic of everything I've thrown. So yeah, I'd say I've had a pretty successful season with these Googan Squad baits. How about you? Are you a fan of the Googans? If so, tell me about it below. And if not, why not? I'll tell you what, I want you to try these baits out too. If this video gets 100 likes, I'll do a drawing. All you got to do is subscribe, like this video, and drop a comment down below with the hashtag Googan Takeover, followed by the name of your favorite Googan. If you don't have a favorite Googan, that's fine. Just put in hashtag Googan Takeover. I'll draw out a winner and send that person a Mondo kit from the Googan Squad. If this video reaches 250 likes, I'll do a drawing, and that person will get one of the Googan Squad signature boxes. It's just that easy. If you like videos like this, be sure to hit that thumbs up button. It helps YouTube promote it to people looking for content like this. Until next time, stay safe, get out of the house, get to fishing.